Welcome to PALITICUS, the only podcast that discusses politics and public service from the Portuguese American perspective. Here we discuss everything from federal policy, local issues, and U.S.-Portugal relations with the goal of driving more discussion and awareness of the issues affecting our nation, our community, and what we as Portuguese Americans can do about it. And now, PALITICUS. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of PALITICUS. Thanks for joining us. My name is Angela Samos, and I'm here with my co-host, Denise Borges. How are you, Denise?
I'm great, Angela. How are you?
I am good. We are recording this just before the Christmas break, so hope by the time everybody hears this, it'll be after Christmas, so hope everybody had a wonderful holiday. But I'll turn it over to you, Denise, to introduce today's guest.
Well, today's guest is someone I've known for a long time, and Portuguese American world has known also for a very long time. Not that he's older, but he has started very young in politics, and that is Representative Tony Cabral from Massachusetts, State Representative Tony Cabral, who is originally from the islands of the Azores, and that's actually where I would like to start. So, Representative Cabral, could you tell us a little bit of your background, where you came from, how you ended up in Massachusetts, and what basically drove you into public service?
Well, thank you, Denise. It's always nice to talk to you. Yes, we know each other for a long time. It's always a pleasure. Yeah, as you said, I was actually born still in the Azores on the island of Pico, in particular in the Vila da Madalena, so at Madalena area of Pico. I immigrated with my parents at the age of 14. They decided to come into this adventure, this beautiful country, which I think was a great decision on their part. Initially, I found myself with my parents in Bristol, Rhode Island. That's where my aunt petitioned for my dad lived at the time. And I did high school, or finished high school there. And then when I went on to college, I moved to Massachusetts. That's when I first moved to Massachusetts. And I've lived in Massachusetts ever since. In college, I was already, a little active, politically active on a number of things at the campus. At the time today is called UMass Dartmouth, but in those days it was called Southeastern Massachusetts University. And from there, I got involved in a number of other local campaigns. And then the big really urge and really got me thinking about it was I got involved with Michael Dukakis at the time, the campaign for governor of Massachusetts. He had initially served 4 years and lost, and he came back. He ran again in 82. That's when I got involved in his campaign. I was the coordinator for Southeastern Massachusetts. I must say paid coordinator, because I was not just a volunteer, but actually someone who at that point had some political organizing skills. And from there, that was sort of the really heavy involvement. And then I was involved also in his presidential campaign in 1988. And then in the meantime, I was teaching. I'm a teacher by profession, high school and middle school, junior high in the old days. They used to call it junior high. Now everything's middle school. But primarily high school that I taught. And, I figured at some point, in order to really have a bigger impact, try to influence my community and those around me and my society, I needed to take the next step, was actually not only work and get other people elected, but also get elected myself and then get involved. And that's what I did.
One thing, Representative Cabral, tell us a little bit, as our podcast is a national podcast, so tell us a little bit about the area that you represent. Is it a heavily Portuguese American area, of course?
Well, my district is in the city of New Bedford. There are, in the Massachusetts House of Representatives, there are 160 of us. The districts are equal by population every 10 years, just like the federal districts, just like any other part of the country. Every 10 years, our districts get redrawn based on the census. And right now, the state of Massachusetts is about 6.7 million people. So I'm one of 160. It's a pretty exclusive. If we call it a club, it would be a pretty exclusive club. But I think it's a great opportunity. I mean, in my area, obviously, has a large Portuguese American community. When I first ran and got elected, we needed to create bridges to other ethnic groups, to other folks who live in the district. You could not get elected just solely on the Portuguese American vote, but obviously it was the case then, and it is the case today. The Portuguese American community is an important block of voters, an important block of support that I have. It gives me a great base to begin with, and to be able to initially get elected and to keep getting reelected.
What are some of the issues, Representative Cabral, that affect the community, or in this case, your particular district? What are some of the major issues, or are they pretty compatible, let's say, or comparable, that is, with other issues that we all have throughout the United States, better education, et cetera?
Yeah, I mean, I usually get asked from time to time by local reporters or state reporters that cover the state, because my district has a very large Portuguese American community. What are the wishes? What are the goals? What does the Portuguese Americans really want and talk to you about? And my answer is always their needs and their objectives and their values are the same by and large of the rest of my district and the rest of the state, and by and large a great deal of the country. I mean, they want good education for their kids. They want a good paying job. They want good, secure in terms of public safety, their community, their neighborhoods to be safe, and they want to be able to for their kids to do better than they have done. So I think those are the broad sense. Of course, there are nuances of needs and values and goals, but I think the broad goals and the broad concerns are pretty similar to everybody else. So I think it's easy to make those kinds of connections across ethnicities, across different people in different communities in the district.
And as you said, you were born in the Azores and have this connection to the Azores, to the islands, and to mainland Portugal. One of the programs that has been in effect in the last few years, especially, has been the legislative dialogues that FLAT has put forth, and I know you've participated in all of them. I know you're one of the big supporter, and your presence at these dialogues is very important. I'd like you to get a little bit of your senses on how these exchanges are important to both the community and to both Portugal, and how can they be beneficial to both of us in your perspective?
Well, I think those legislative dialogues, in large, I think are very important. It creates an opportunity for those of us here in the U.S., be Massachusetts, be in California, or other states in the country, or Rhode Island or others, to really begin to have a serious dialogue with folks on the other side. In this case, in Portugal, elected officials, community leaders, foundation leaders, organization leaders overall, to really get to know each other, not just talk about issues, but also develop, as you know, in politics, as it is in most things in life, it's all about creating friendships and creating a network, not just based on issues, but on getting to know people. When you get to know someone directly, it's very different. So you create those kinds of connections, and that allows us to then to get into the issues and really get to know what's going on each side of the Atlantic, if you will. I mean, it's important for them to understand us here, and it's important for us to understand them there. I think having that kind of interaction, I think it makes us stronger here. It makes us also have the ability to help Portugal and the Azores overall. As you know, in D.C. or any other state capital in the United States, if you have folks who understand and can guide people, advise people, that's how things get done. And that's how the Portuguese American community is going to be stronger and more influential. It's a way of empowering the community at the same time. So, as you said, I was involved from the very beginning and actually encouraged FLAT to take a more active role on that. The very first one we had actually was in D.C. At the time, the Portuguese embassy also participated. And then I think FLAT did the right thing. In order to get to know elected officials and community leaders and foundation and organizational leaders in Portugal, it's got to be there. I think it makes sense. Once in a while, we got to get together here as well. And I think we are working on that. I think you guys have done that in California. We've done several times here on the East Coast, and hopefully we can do one that brings all of us in the U.S. together as well, along with some folks from Portugal. That's how you really build and empower the community.
And as you also mentioned, the community has changed immensely, as you know, being part of the Portuguese American community for all these years, having immigrated from the Azores at the age of 14. The community itself, are we as a community in Massachusetts and Rhode Island, the states that you know very well, is the community a little bit more active politically than they were, let's say, 25, 30 years ago in your perspective?
Absolutely. I'm not going to say a little, more, much, a lot more than they were 20, 25 years ago. Today, the community really is beginning to understand how important it is to get involved where you reside, where you live, and influence the day-to-day livelihood, the day-to-day things that can happen in your community, in your state. And I think the community has grown that way tremendously versus what it was 25 years ago. And I think there's still some work to be done. Is there still more growth to be done in that area, more involvement? Yes, of course. There's always more. But I think we are at a position, I think the community is at a place that it's only going to grow, that influence. We know how to do. I mean, we know how to organize. Why can't we do not know how to organize politically or get what we call these days civic engagement? I mean, who does the best festas in my area? It's the Portuguese community, right?
Right.
Who does the big Espírito Santo festas or Santo Cristo or whatever? So we know how to organize things. We know how to put things together. So we just have to those are transferable skills to the field of public life and public involvement and civic engagement beyond our own community organizations. The skills are there, just a way to transfer them, and they are transferable. And I think that's happening more and more. And I think that's great. You know?
One other aspect, as you mentioned, in Massachusetts, and I saw that when we were at the legislative dialogues in Lisbon this past spring, the large representation of Portuguese Americans in the Massachusetts State House and the Massachusetts Senate. One thing that we do not have had, or if we have not in the recent past, is a Portuguese American in Congress from Massachusetts. Why is that, in your perspective?
We haven't had that, and but I don't think that means we'll never have. I think we will in the future. I think politics here are complex, in the East Coast in particular, in New England in particular. It's, when you ask someone, what's your nationality, right? Their first reaction is not, I'm American, right? I'm Portuguese, or I'm Irish, or I'm Polish. And all of that translates into the political activity. So the Democratic Party, in this case, my party that I belong to, the State Democratic Committee, which I'm a member of, has been influenced a great deal, and there's done a lot of work with the larger ethnic groups that are here, like the Irish Americans. But I think that's changing as well. I mean, and then it becomes a little more complex, and it's more, the politics sometimes, as people sometimes don't want to believe, that they can get very, very community oriented or very ethnic oriented in that sense. So sometimes you have to overcome and build bridges, and that's what I've always done at my level, at the state level. So I think at the congressional level, the community, I think it's moving in that direction. And I think the community by itself cannot, just like in California, right? You can't elect just the Portuguese American community cannot be just the only ones electing. You got to build bridges, and you got to have other folks be supportive. And how sometimes how does that happen? It's by knowing you, by knowing the community well, feeling comfortable, saying, well, these folks have this person has the same ideals as I have, the same values, even though they might sound a little different, or might look a little different. And so you have to make people feel that they can feel comfortable that you're going to represent what is, the issues that are important for all of us. You're not going to be taking sides per se.
So the only way a Portuguese American could ever get elected to Congress in Massachusetts, much like California, you said, is to build coalitions with other ethnic groups.
Yeah, you got to build coalitions, absolutely. But also, in Massachusetts being smaller, in terms of the number of congressional seats, redistricting is very important, as it is in California or any other places we know in the country, right?
Correct.
Why does the Congress, the makeup of Congress is what it is because of the redistricting that takes place every 10 years in each state, and that is not controlled by Congress. That's controlled by the state legislatures, and that's why it's also important to elect more folks from the community to the state legislature, because it is the state legislature that makes the districts, creates the districts, redraws the districts.
Right.
At least that's how it is in Massachusetts. I know some states have tried this so-called independent commission. The Constitution in Massachusetts and in most states gives that responsibility to the state legislature.
Right.
And I think that's where it belongs. And that's where we have to play aggressive politics, right?
Right.
Because in this case, for example, in the case of Massachusetts, we could easily draw a district that would be a Portuguese American would be, probably the favorite. Doesn't mean he or she is going to win, but would be from day one the favorite in that district. And that would be a district that would include all of Fall River, all of New Bedford, all of Taunton, and some of the surrounding communities, part of Cape Cod. And that's possible, but that's only possible if we have enough influence in the legislature when the redistricting comes up every 10 years. So it's important also to build the grassroots, to build the farm team, if you will, at the local and state level. Then that will then translate into results at the congressional level.
As you mentioned that we have to build bridges with other ethnic groups, one question, do you think that there's been, especially in the last 20 or 25 years, that you've been heavily involved in the political world in Massachusetts and a student of the political world in general throughout the United States and Portugal itself, do you think there's been a little bit too much focus on what is now known as identity politics?
Well, I mean, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it,
right.
A lot of politics, especially in New England, the Northeast in particular, I mean, that plays a role, if you like it or not, right? Mm-hmm. And in other parts of the country as well. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's much more natural for me to support something or someone that I know at least has some of my same values. I understand that person because of who or she might be and their background might be. That's okay. I mean, that's sort of what human beings do, right? So I think you cannot eliminate that part of politics. But I think what's important is to realize that you got to continue to build those coalitions and build those bridges, as I say. And I think we've been successful. I mean, I think the Portuguese American candidates, by and large, in my area, have been somewhat successful. In my case, I can tell you that I've been building coalitions from day one because I know, and even today, in order to win elections, that's what you got to do. I mean, I've been very fortunate that way. I've been able to build great coalitions. I have great support in many other communities besides my own community of the Portuguese American community, but it requires involvement, requires getting to know them as well, getting to know their traditions, their culture, it's not. It can't be just pretending to know or pretending to understand and pretending to. You got to get involved,
right? And
really, when you go to understand that culture, it's important.
Well, Representative Cabral, thank you very much, first of all, for spending this time with us. I know it's a hectic time of the year. Thank you for all you do. Thank you for your leadership in the Portuguese American community. And we try to end these podcasts with a call to action from our guests who are Portuguese American community, whether they are in Massachusetts, Rhode Island, throughout the East Coast of the United States, the West Coast, or even in some parts in between where we do have communities here and there. As someone who's been involved in public service just about a great part of your life, and someone who's contributed immensely to the community, various organizations and schools, etc. What would be, first of all, some kind of an advice to our younger Portuguese Americans to get involved in the political world, and basically, what would be a call to action that you'd like to see from younger Portuguese Americans, and not just younger Portuguese Americans, all of us of various generations, whether we're immigrants, second, third, fourth generation? What should we do as a next step to even have a larger presence in the political process in these states, in this great country of ours?
I think it's basic. I think it's by getting involved initially at the local level. I mean, be around education, be the school committee, the school board, whatever terminology is used in the part of the country, and getting involved in your community. I think one thing we need to do, I must tell you, is our own organizations within the Portuguese American community need young people to get involved. We need to do leadership building. We need to groom leadership in our community. In some cases, some of our organizations are having tremendous challenges because not enough young people are involved. And that can be a training ground how to run a meeting, how to do minutes of a meeting, how to make motions, those sort of might sound technical things. And there are other communities who do that extremely well. I usually use the Jewish American community in my area. They run specific programs to create what they call the leadership building within each one of the Jewish American communities. Literally, they go in and they train board of directors, they train volunteers to how to get civically engaged, how to run an organization, how to lead, how to get involved. And I think we need more from our young people. How do we get them involved? That's always been one of the big mysteries, right? But I think the more today, when I look at it, at least today, there's a lot of promise, I must say, because today, most of the young people that I come across that are Portuguese Americans are extremely proud of who they are. They are extremely proud of their roots, of their parents, of their background. They are proud Americans at the same time, but they realize that it's okay to be proud of who you are. I mean, self-esteem is a tremendous motivator, right? And I think, as it was opposed to 25 years ago, sometimes people used to shy away a little bit. They want, I want to just blend in. It's okay to be different. I mean, because really we are a multicultural nation, and that's what makes us really strong as a nation. That's what makes us different from any other country in the world. And I think our young people are beginning to really realize that. It's just how do we hook them in, and how we get them to become active participants rather than just. I think the process started by being proud of who they are, and being proud because also a lot of them realize that Portugal is also a different place, the place of their parents or grandparents, right? The country has transformed itself as well, and that's a sense of pride. You can see that sometimes. Whenever we have the World Cup, as I'm sure you have experienced in California as well, in other parts of the country, you have young people already born here, sometimes second generation. And if you remember when the national team from Portugal and the national team from the U.S. played against each other on a couple of World Cups ago, and they were torn. Which one they really gonna really support? It shows that they have grown as well in that sense that they are proud of who they are. They are proud of being great Americans, and they also like things that are Portuguese, including the national team. Becomes a sense of pride for them, and I think that will translate into tremendous positive engagement going forward.
Well, this has been a great conversation, especially I really enjoyed the term that you kind of came up with, which is we are great organizing festers. Now we have to take this organization into the public sphere. And I think that is really telling. I think it's important. Thank you again so much for your time. Thank you for your service to the state of Massachusetts, to the Portuguese American community, and to the United States in general. And we hope that maybe when that Portuguese American gets elected to Congress from Massachusetts, it's an immigrant, Tony Cabral.
Well, thank you very much. It would be a tremendous honor if that could happen. But, I think as long as we work together, I think that will happen. Be Tony Cabral or somewhere else. I think it's going to happen. It's a matter of time. And I'm hoping that California likes even more. I mean, California has been a leader in that area, and we hope that they continue to do that, and the community continues to support those individuals as well.
Indeed. Again, thank you so much, and best of luck to you always. It's always a pleasure talking to you. Take care, my friend.
Well, thank you very much, Denise. Hopefully we'll see each other soon. I hope you continue to participate in those dialogues as well. I think the next one is going to be this next April, 2018. And hopefully we come across the East Coast or the West Coast, because I think you and an individual like you as well have done tremendous work. And I know that. I'm not just saying for saying I know. You've done tremendous work to really get this community at the point that we can maximize our skills, our know-how. I mean, as I said earlier, and you repeated, you mentioned that. Sometimes I ask, and they say, well, I don't know how to do that. I've never been involved in politics. I says, well, you know how to organize this or that. I've never seen anybody organize a feast better than you, right? So it's very similar. It's just, it's a different issue, but the skills are very similar. So, and I think you also have done tremendous work there, and we appreciate that.
Well, thank you very much.
East Coast as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much. On behalf of PALITICUS, again, thank you for participating. Appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you both for your time today. And thanks everybody who are out there listening. Thanks for joining us and dedicating some of your day to Politicus. If you haven't hit subscribe yet, please hit that subscribe button and share the episode and share the whole podcast channel with friends and family. And please do leave us a review on iTunes. That will help others find us on iTunes. And with that, we thank you again for your time and Happy New Year. And until next time, have a great day.
Well, thank you, Angela, and thank you to PALITICUS. Great work.
Thank you for listening to Politicus, the official podcast of PALITICUS, the Portuguese American Leadership Council of the United States. PALITICUS is the premier national organization representing the interests of the Portuguese American community at large. To learn more about PALITICUS and how to become a member or to make a donation, visit www.palcus.org. To submit feedback or suggestions about the podcast, email us at palcus@palcus.org. The views and opinions expressed by the hosts and guests of the show are not endorsed by PALITICUS.